we have been looking at the responsibilities of believers, of Christians in the country. You are a child of God, a citizen of heaven. What are the things that are expected of you in this world that we are in? What are the things that God expects from you as a citizen of a nation? That is our subject. We have found out that under God, we are expected to do some certain things. We are expected to pray for those that are in authority. We are expected to pay our tax as citizens. We are expected as citizens of a country to obey the rulers over us. All these things are expected of us as citizens of the country. Today we are looking at another thing that is expected of us. And this is one thing that brings question to a whole lot of Christians. Because the Bible says in the book of Colossians, chapter 3, that we belong to the heavenly and that we should set our affections on things above. Colossians chapter 3 verse 1 says, "If ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ seated on the right hand of God. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth." Because of this many times, it raises question in the heart of the people. Should we be interested in the political system of the country? Should we be politically active? Is it right or wrong? There are a lot of Christians that hold the idea or the notion that it's probably wrong to be politically active. They look at it like this: give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, give unto God what belongs to God. But the truth of the matter is this: 1 Timothy chapter 2. Let me show us something about 1 Timothy chapter 2. You realize that in 1 Timothy chapter 2, the Bible says in verse 1, "I exhort therefore that first of all, supplication, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty." Here we can see something very interesting. The Bible says that we should pray for the people that are in authority. And it said the reason is so that we can live in all honesty and godliness and in peace. Very thought-provoking. In what sense, Pastor? In the sense that if we don't pray for the people that are in authority, we can't live in peace, number one. Then it is impossible to live in all godliness and honesty. What this passage actually is saying is this: living in all godliness and honesty, more than you realize, is a function of the system of the country. Another way to look at it is this: the system operating in a nation, in a country, can peg how holy you will live. You cannot live holier than the system will permit you. You cannot live holier than the system will permit you. When you have a system that is corrupted with corruption, a system that is tainted with corruption, it is very, very difficult to live a life that will not be affected by the self-same corruption. The Bible says that Lot pitched his tent towards Sodom. There was no way he could exonerate himself from the influences of Sodom. Do you know Lot was able to escape because probably he was of a strong character, but his children were taken over by the wave of the problem. Why? Because he lived there. What I'm saying in essence is this: the environment, the country, the nation where you and me are living will affect our holiness. It will affect our serving God. It will affect our peace. And what does that imply? That means that we should be interested in the political setting of the country that we belong to. It is not wrong for a believer to be politically active concerning the nation where he is living, because the welfare of that nation will affect his own holiness. Our relationship with God will be affected by the peace in our land. The peace in our land will be affected by the political tilting of the land. And the political tilting of the land will be affected by our participation. So every child of God listening to me everywhere, I want you to be aware that it is not wrong, number one, for you to be involved with politics of the land. Number two, your involvement is important in the sense that the political state, the political atmosphere of any country, the governance, the governmental system of any country will affect the holiness of Christians that are living there. No matter how much you want to exonerate yourself, the abundance of peace in a country will affect the church. For example, if there is a war, if there is riot, if there is persecution in a nation, you will see that it will affect churches. We won't be able to move and meet freely. We won't be able to serve God as we would have loved to serve God. That means that the peace in the nation will affect our service to God. So if we are not interested in the peace, in the governance of the nation, we are indirectly not happy or interested in the peace of us as believers. That is our interest. When it comes to the system of governance in the nation that we belong to, our involvement is very important. It's not just a function of money. It involves everything. If the system is rotten, it's impossible to live a holy life. The system of any country will peg how holy you can live. I explained this in one of the teachings by explaining that if your daughter wants to get married and there is fuel scarcity because of bad governance, what do? You go to the black market to buy, and that is wrong. But will you not? I will do the same, you will do the same. That is, the system is affecting how holy I can live. Now, if the system can affect my holiness, what does that then mean? That means that I better get interested in what they are doing with the system. To be interested in the political settings of a country or of a nation is not wrong for a child of God. We need to be involved. We need to be involved. How? Number one, by casting our votes. Let there not be anyone that is eligible, no matter the country where you are watching this or hearing this. Let there not be anyone that is eligible to vote, failing to vote because you are a child of God. Don't come around and say that because I have to go to church, I'm not going to vote. My brother, vote first, then you go to church after. Churches should not fix meeting at the same time with the voting exercise, so that everyone will be able to vote. Many of us believers, we are strong at condemning the government without fulfilling our duties. One of the duties of every child of God, every citizen of a country, is to make sure that they exercise their civic right by voting. 1 vote per person. Every child of God should be involved with that. It is ordained of God. We have a choice, we have a part to play in choosing our leaders. Even in the Old Testament, in 1 Samuel chapter 8, when Samuel was, when the children of Israel pushed him, they said, go to God and ask God to give us a king. We recognize that God is our God, but we want him to set a king over us. At that particular point in time, Samuel didn't have a choice. He had to go to God. But it was even the people that made the selection. They were the ones that they bombarded Samuel until Samuel consented to ask God. God told them the problem of having a king at that particular point in time. They said, we do not care. So you see that it was the people that chose their leaders. If you're a child of God and you fail to vote, that means that you are leaving your right for others to exercise. You don't have a right to go and start condemning the government. if you fail to vote. You have a choice. You have an opportunity to choose who will lead you. You folded your hands and you allow someone else or other people to make the choice. Then why are you complaining? You don't have a right to complain if you fail to vote. So one of our civic duty as a member or as a citizen in any country, even though we are believers, we are born again, is to make sure that we cast our vote to the people of our choice. Before you cast your vote, make sure that you are enlightened. You understand, you know what you are doing, and you know the people you are voting for. You are not expected to vote by being induced with money. Clear-mindedness. You go through the write-ups, you go through the whatever, the plans, the intended plans that whoever you want to vote for has in mind. You go through their policies, what do they stand for? You try to look at their track record. Where are they coming from? Have they heard any post before? If they have heard any post before, was there complaints? Or were they outstanding in their performances? All these things are the things that are supposed to guide and aid your decision before you make your choice of who to vote for. So there is something about us being enlightened, being acquainted with what is going on around us. There are many of us believers, our special area is in criticism. We criticize the government, we criticize the local government chairman, we criticize the state government, and we fail to vote. You don't have any right to criticize anybody if you fail to vote. It is when you vote that you can now say what they are doing is right or wrong. But if you do not vote, you don't have a right to say that. We should be involved. Number one, by casting our vote. Number two, there are offices when it comes to the governance or the governmental system of a nation. Not only should Christians vote, Christians can be voted for. I want you to take note of that, because there are a lot of Christians that have this notion that, well, once I voted, that's all. Is the kingdom of the devil, let the devil have it. No. My brother and sister, if the devil have it, you also will not be able to sleep with your eyes closed. That is why you cannot just fold your hands. You have to participate. That is, not only should you cast your vote, you can be voted for. It is also part of our duty, civic duty as believers. We are expected to be voted for. Now listen. When it comes to going to offices, you now need a little bit of explanation when it comes to that. Pastor, why? The reason is because there are diversities of operation, or I can put it like this. When it comes to the call of God, when it comes to the plan of God for individuals, you have different kind of calls or plan of God for our lives. There are some people that actually have a specific calling or tilting towards politics. What I'm telling you is this: it may be in the divine wisdom of God and plan of God for your life for you to actually be involved with the governmental system of a nation. There is something like that. We have seen in the Bible some people that God used outstandingly when it comes to the affairs of this world. Not only in the church do God anoint and use people, He uses them outside also. I believe that is one of the things this Romans chapter 13 is saying. You follow me to this Romans chapter 13 from verse 1. The Bible says, "Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisted the power resisted the ordinance of God. And they that receive shall receive to themselves a damnation. For the rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is a minister of God to thee for good." Look at that. The Bible actually called them ministers of God. So they are not ministers of the devil. In fact, the Bible says the reason why they are there is to make sure that truth prevail, good prevail over evil. They are ministers of God. Don't tell me that God cannot send somebody to be involved with governmental system of a country. No, God does. He does. He can. But you see, how do I know? It's the same way someone that is called to sing will know. Hardly do you see somebody busting out into limelight in songs, waxing an album that is on a reputable level, or making the bestseller or whatever. No, you don't do that accidentally. It's like dream. The Bible will say Joseph dreamt again. It's something that we will have started saying. The Bible says when Moses was born, the parents kept him because they saw that he was a proper child. There was something peculiar about him. They saw it from childbirth. Before you become outstanding when it comes to song, we will have seen it when you're young. You will have started murmuring when you are young. We will have seen that there is songs about you, because it doesn't just come just from outside like that. It must be inside of you. It's the same thing. There are some people that have inclination towards politics. It will have been inside of them. They just want to be involved with governance. There are some people that will come around and they will say to be involved with government means you may backslide, means you may do this and that. But as much as you want to do that or tell them that, it doesn't get to them. Why? Because it's inside of them. Getting involved with the political system of the country, of the nation, is inside of them. So if you are inclined towards that, you will find out that you are affected by whatever is happening with the system. Not everybody go home and start thinking about how rotten the nation is. Not everybody go home and have sleepless nights because there is no pipe-borne water, good pipe-borne water running in the country. Nobody does that. Not everybody does that, but some people do. What is a sign? That is a sign that you are probably inclined towards getting to see something going on well in the country. I've seen some young students, secondary school students, college students, and when I see the way they lament about the system, you know that if they have the power, they want to do something. Then I watch those ones. I watch them grow, because I know that one way or the other, they probably have something to do with the governance of the land. They probably have something to do with how to set the system right. Oh, there are a lot of people that whether the system is right or wrong, as long as they have their own food on their table, that is all that matters to them. But it touches some people in an unusual way. It touches some people in an amazing way. It's an inclination that probably they are led along that line. What I'm saying in essence is this: not only should you vote, you can be voted for. And the way to know many times is that you will have seen traces of it. You will have seen traces of it, that there is an inclination, a tilting towards the politics of the land. You will hear over and over, politics is dirty. Politics is a dirty game. But if you are inclined towards that, you feel like this: let me get there and find out how dirty it is. Let me see what I can do about it, because you are inclined towards that. And we have seen people in history that God has used along that line. We have seen some marvelous people that God used even sometimes to rescue a whole country, a whole nation. Fresh in our memory is the story of Joseph. Joseph was a Jew. He came from the land of Israel, came from his father Jacob. You know the story, how his brothers hated him, sold him out as a slave. By God's orchestration, he was moved to Egypt. He served as a slave in a man's house. He had a dream. Something happened. The man's wife lied against him. They imprisoned him. In the prison, two of the prisoners had a dream overnight. He interpreted the dreams. By the interpretation, eventually he got to the palace, because Pharaoh had a dream. They called him in to interpret the dreams. He interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh, and that's how he became involved with the governance in that country. They made him the prime minister. He used his wisdom to rescue a whole generation. So he was brought into limelight. Thank God for that, because that is what God eventually used to rescue his people, or else they would have died of hunger. When there was a worldwide famine all over the land, it was the wisdom that God gave Joseph that rescued the generation. Probably today there wouldn't have been the nation of Israel. They probably would have all perished completely. But herein is a man that was used in the governmental system of the nation. Brethren everywhere, I want you to be aware of the fact that God can use you when it comes to the politics of the land. Don't let just say that, well, I'm a Christian, I'm going to heaven. Yeah, we know you are a Christian. We know you are going to heaven. But let me tell you something, you can be useful here on the earth before you go. God could wire you actually to be involved with the politics of the land. It may actually be in the plan of God, in the purpose of God, that you get involved with the politics of the land. By the grace of God, in the next teaching, I will teach us, and I'm going to use Nigeria as an example, where I am acquainted with the system. I will show you one of the reasons why many people do not get involved, many Christians don't get involved with politics. Sometimes some stay outside from afar and have their seats on the platform of judgment. There are some, they look at it and the whole thing looks like the cobweb of problems. And they sit down and they ask themselves, where do you start? So they just stand aloof, far away, not getting involved at all. You have all manner here and there when it comes to politics in the land. How do you wade through all that? That is what we are going to study. One of the greatest challenges that I found out for us, as far as we are concerned as believers, is the fact that the rules that govern politics is not the rule that governs the church. It's not the same rule that we use in house fellowship. So sometimes when we come across and we find out that the rules that works outside there is not what works in here, we back out. We can't eat devilish. No, they are of different rules. How do you go there and remain a saint? We are going to study all that. We are talking about the responsibilities of believers to their country. Are you a child of God? There is nothing wrong in you being involved with politics. Even if you are not going to be actively involved in politics, please make sure whenever it's necessary, you cast your vote. I'm Reverend Gbade Ogunlana.